One day, after you've been shooting photography manually for an extended period of time, you won't give much thought to what aperture or shutter speed you're shooting because it'll just be muscle memory. But until then, things like choosing the right aperture can feel a little overwhelming. So let's fix that today.
And thanks to MPB for sponsoring this video. We've already made a video about shooting manually for beginners, so we're not gonna bore you with the math and science of aperture in this video. Instead, we're gonna cover the two main uses for aperture: letting in more or less light,
and changing the depth of field. Simply put, your aperture is like your eye's pupil. The wider your aperture is, the more light you're letting into your camera. Inversely, the tighter your aperture is, the less light you're allowing into your camera. Easy. The only thing you have to remember is that the smaller your aperture number, or f-stop, is, the wider your aperture is, which feels counterintuitive.
In other words, on a lens like this 50mm, the widest aperture is f1.2 and the tightest aperture is f16. So if you're working in a dark setting and you need to let in a lot of light, remember you'll want to use a lower f-stop or aperture number. On the flip side, if you're shooting at high noon, you may want to close that puppy up and shoot closer to f5.6 or tighter, that is to say, higher.
If this is still a little confusing right now, we just need you to remember that the smaller the number, the more light comes in.
Maybe the main thing that a beginner photographer is excited about when it comes to aperture is changing the depth of field. Before you invested in a camera and lenses, you may have not gotten to control the depth of field in your photos, and now you're pumped to get in on that bokeh action or bokeh action.
Or bokeh action.
So changing the depth of field is easy to do, and remember, the smaller the number your f-stop is, the shallower your depth of field will be, which means blurry backgrounds.
This means on our trusty old 50mm shooting wide open at f1.2, we'll have a super shallow depth of field. Only the things that exist on this shallow plane in our image will be in focus. Everything in the foreground and background of our subject will be blurry. This can serve to isolate your subject and separate it from the foreground and/or background.
Furthermore, if there are lights in your background, this can create some pretty dramatic bokeh.
Or bokeh.
Who says that?
Nobody.
People who are new to photography can get pretty caught up in shooting everything completely wide open because they believe these kind of photos are more artful. So we just want to clarify that there's nothing inherently artistic about shooting wide open.
It's completely blurry.
Plenty of striking images have been shot with a deep depth of field, so don't discount one or the other.
Some subjects and settings may call for shallower or deeper depths of field, and the more you shoot, the more comfortable you'll be in deciding which depth of field feels right for your photo.
For example, if you're shooting a portrait at f1.2, you may not be able to get both eyes in focus at the same time. So novice photographers might not be getting their entire subject's face in focus, whereas a more seasoned photographer may shoot something closer to f2.8, even if their gear has the capacity to shoot wider.
An exception to this is when you are far enough away from your subject and the entire background is in focus. You could shoot a landscape at f1.4 and not worry about different background elements being out of focus. So usually the lenses that have the widest apertures tend to be the most expensive, so if wider apertures aren't in your budget right now, don't let that stop you from taking striking images with a deeper depth of field.
Okay, now we'll shoot one subject at a bunch of different apertures so you can see what each one looks like. If you're like us, you probably hate the hassle of trying to sell your old cameras.
And you might admittedly have gear in your closet that you haven't used in a few years.
And you might be thinking it'd be nice to free up some space and funds so you can afford that new pirate-themed multi-tool or coffee table matchbook.
The f is a coffee table matchbook? Well, instead of ending up as a victim in a crime docuseries about Craigslist murders, you should check out MPB.
MPB is a pretty large online platform to buy, sell, and trade used photography and videography equipment.
How large are we talking? Third largest?
No, not third largest.
Second largest?
I'm gonna stop you right there. It is the world's largest platform with over 250,000 photographers and videographers using MPB.
Whoa, so I bet it costs a boatload to ship them your gear.
No bozo, it's free.
Well, I bet it takes them a long time to pay you.
No, you dumb it's super fast.
Well, I bet it takes hours for them to give you a quote.
No, you stupid it's instant.
Well, I bet we've never even used the site and are just paid shills.
Wrong again, face. Well, we are getting paid, but we used MPB to buy the camera we're using to shoot this right now.
Why didn't they just give it to us for free?
Free up funds by selling or trading in your photo or video kit to MPB. The link is in the description.
Hey, where's my Leica M6?
We hope you now have a better understanding of how to use Aperture to get the photos you want.
If you want to learn how to shoot in manual mode in under 12 minutes, we'll link that video below.
See you in the next one.